A good evening, good afternoon to the co-founder of Wasserman Boxing and Chris Eubank Jr.'s promoter, Kalle Sauerland joins us. Hello, Kalle, how are you?
How you gents, you right?
We're
Yeah,
good,
we're
we're
good.
very well. Thanks so much for coming on. Are you good? Are you well?
Well, in boxing, you can only be as well as you feel in this moment. Feeling great. Big fight week for us this week, Channel 5. Lots of things going on with other events. So, yeah, no, can't complain.
Well, listen, we'll start with that one at the weekend at the Telford International Centre. Tell me a bit more about it.
Look, it's a European Championship fight live on Channel 5, free to air, terrestrial television on DAZN around the world. It's Sam Eggington versus Aass, who's number 5 in the world. So a real all or nothing fight for both of them. Very exciting European Championship. So great to have boxing on Channel 5. A lot talked about, people having to pay for boxing and stuff. This one's free to air. Promoters are generous sometimes, and this is a real treat, a cracker of a card. Return of Matty Harris, the heavyweight. So big card up there.
I want to ask you about this Sam Eggington fight. I mean, he's in good form. Won his last 2 fights, I think, both by TKO. Who do you make favourite for this fight, and who's got more at stake when it comes to winning this fight?
I've worked with Aass since his first fight. He was a silver medalist at the bronze medalist at the World Championships as an amateur. Sam Eggington is never in a bad fight, win or lose. He's never in a bad fight. So, look, Aass has got it all to do. It's going into the, Sam Eggington's home country, home area, etc. So it's going to have the crowd against him. It's just going to be a sold-out crowd up there in Telford. Great atmosphere always in Telford. I've done quite a few shows there over the years. Great venue, proper throwback fight, Friday night fight.
Great to see it on free to air as well. You mentioned Channel 5. What are the major differences then between a satellite company taking it, for argument, Sky, and a terrestrial channel like Channel 5 taking it? Is this a decision that's made when both boxers are lesser known, so they can, the general public can be more au fait with them, or not? Does that come into it?
I think the Channel 5 platform is fantastic springboard for anyone in boxing. I mean, Tyson Fury, Chris Eubank Jr. The names that have been on Channel 5 over the years are fantastic. Of course, when you go to pay-per-view, you can generate a lot more money, and that's obviously where the public complain as well. But at the same time, you want to see the big fights. It's always going to be on pay-per-view. That doesn't mean though that the fights, when you're getting to that pay-per-view level, are sometimes the most exciting fights, because that's when it's all at stake, to get to that pay-per-view level. So, it's fantastic always for a sport like boxing to generate these numbers, and you can see the numbers on Channel 5. I think we had 2 million for Harlan Eubank last year. Those are massive numbers. Those are football numbers, and that's the sort of platform you want to be on when you're building up your career, and especially when you go into a fight where so much is at stake, and the next day on the high street, people say, "Oh, I saw you in that fight." It's that recognition as well, isn't it?
Of course. Well, you mentioned him there, and I want to move on a little bit about Chris Eubank Jr. Now, obviously, Canelo's yet to announce his first opponent of 2024, and I think Eubank Jr. has come on and said that he wants to fight him, and I think his dad even came on the station earlier this year and said that he needs to redeem his career. Is that a fight that you can make happen? Because Eddie Hearn seems to think that fight will never happen. Canelo would never fight Chris Eubank Jr. What do you think? Do you think that could happen?
Listen, I think, first of all, I think Chris Eubank Jr. has always said, Triple G and Canelo, those are the two sort of international names. He said for years and years now that those are the ones that he wants to fight. Listen, boxing, is always a commercial decision. Now, you can look at taking a boxer from the obviously Mongolia being talked about at the moment. That's, of course, massive in the Latino market, the US market, absolutely ginormous on the Cinco de Mayo, that weekend, which is such a legendary boxing weekend. But on the other side, you're not going to do, hundreds of thousands, if not a million pay-per-view buys in the UK with that fight. So you look at unlocking a different market. But look, at the same time, I'm not in the Canelo business. They'll have their ideas. I'm pretty sure that we talk about it getting done. It's, what is it, 10 weeks out, 9 weeks out, 10 weeks out. So that's going to be done or thereabouts already now.
So what will his next fight be then, Eubank Jr.?
We've had a good chat last week. There's lots of options out there, and
what are they?
And you put me on the spot here, but there's the same ones floating about as before. I'm sure I'll get asked a question in a minute about a certain fight, but there's obviously Kell Brook is the one that's being discussed a lot at the moment. There's Janibek for the world titles, which is also in discussion. So there's lots of different routes here, and I can see Darren already putting his finger up there.
Yeah, you know exactly what fight I'm about to ask about.
Before Benty asks about that, I'm not going to steal his thunder, right? I'll let Benty ask that question. But what fight does Eubank Jr. want next? If you phoned him up now and said, right, you could have anyone.
I think the Kell Brook fight's a fantastic fight for the UK, but at the same time, internationally, he's recognised by a lot of people as the number one middleweight right now. So Janibek is an obvious fight, but at the same time, it has the dollars have to add up. That's as simple as that.
One fight, of course, that would generate the dollar, as you put it, Conor Benn. Obviously, we know that's been spoken about for a long, long time. Obviously, we know Conor Benn had his issues, but how far are we from seeing that fight actually happen? Because I think Conor Benn's been saying that Chris Eubank Jr. has been running scared and all this, but how realistic that fight could be sooner rather than later?
Well, I'd much rather be talking about that fight than talking about the potential of that fight. So, yeah, I mean, I think we were close last year. I just think that it dragged on too long, and in boxing, sometimes things like that explode. It's not on the table at the moment. It's not being discussed at the moment. I think Conor Benn has a hearing this week, or the result of a hearing comes this week. But again, I'm not part of the Benn team, so I'm not privileged to that information, but that's what I've been told and what we can read in the media. So that obviously would have a big impact on the way that fight's seen. Although, he's just fought in Vegas. There's also, the opportunity to do it abroad. There's lots of different things. But right now, it's not being discussed. So it's actually quite a simple deal to put together if things go his way with his hearing this week. But as of right now, there's not a discussion ongoing.
If they do go the right way in the hearing, does Chris Eubank Jr. want this fight?
I don't like talking on behalf of Junior because he often has very strong opinions about certain things himself. But he's signed for that fight before. That fight is much bigger now than it was when he signed for it, given the 2 years of storyline. So, yeah, I would assume that would be quite high up the rankings.
Okay. Just so we can move on, a yes or no, do you think we'll ever see that fight?
I do.
You do? Okay. This year or next year?
Crikey, Andy.
Got to ask the tough questions.
I mean, I think you'll see it sooner rather than later. And mustn't forget that, it's been talked about for so long now. It feels like 20 years. I know it's only 2 years, but it is... it's a long old slog for a fight that hasn't happened.
Okay. This year or next year? You didn't answer.
This year, I guess.
This year, okay.
That's just a guess.
Yeah, no, sure. Listen, you know much more than we do, so I'm just curious as to just hear your views on it. Let's move on. This is very interesting. This KSI has been speaking on the Cyban podcast this week and explained how former Man United forward Wayne Rooney called him out for a fight. Have a listen.
All right, I've got it. This 5th of December, 2022.
Oh, okay, quite
at 3:50 a.m.
Bo's been down the pines.
Hi, mate. What you think on me and you having a boxing fight? I think we could generate a lot of money. You up for it? No question mark. Just full stop.
No, he's saying you up for it.
Yeah.
He's not asking.
He's not asking.
We could sell out a stadium with right support and both make good money. It'd be great to just see him fight someone.
Yeah,
and if he annihilates that person, then fine.
Yeah, we've all sent a text past midnight and woke up the next day and regretted it. I think that's fair to say. And this was a long time ago, 5th December 2022. But either way, has there been any contact regarding Wayne Rooney? Do you ever think we'll ever see Wayne Rooney in the ring on a Misfits card or not?
I don't know. And it's quite funny, when I was travelling when the story broke, and we've been in talks with some of his representatives actually since December, early December. So it wasn't a fresh story for me. It clearly got out somehow. It wasn't from us, because I'll be honest, I've met Wayne quite a few times privately at boxing and stuff like that. Had a fun weekend with him in the south of France, a few moons ago now. So I know the fella, great lad. So I was always thinking, you know, he would have been a great boxer if he wasn't a footballer. The way he's built, I think he had amateur fights. He certainly has some sort of boxing background. There is that viral video of him having an altercation with another player. But he's that sort of guy you look at when he's playing football and you think, I'd like to see him have a row. And so, but there was, when the story broke, I was like, this is like old news. It's a bit of a weird story to come with now. But we've never had a yes or a no. At the same time, I've never had a one-to-one with Wayne either. So I can't really say where his head's at. I mean, it's very clear he wants to be a successful on the training side of things. And I guess if you want to do that, you've got to weigh it up, because you want to take the one thing seriously, you can't take the other thing seriously. So it's not really something you can do both, or it'd be quite difficult.
Just briefly, at the top of that chat, you said discussions were taking place not too long ago. Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, the discussion was, do you want to have a fight? And the reply was, not quite sure yet. He's looking at the management side of things. So that was the translation. That would have just been after the Birmingham stuff, and yeah, around then.
Okay. Do you think that will happen?
Like I said, I don't know. I mean, you look at Wayne and you think, if anyone can have a tear up who's been a footballer, it's certainly Wayne.
100%.
You know, but I didn't actually know about that message to KSI, so that's an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, we've all written those late night texts before. I've never offered someone out at Wembley Stadium, but you know what? The thing is, it actually would feel Wembley Stadium.
It would.
So that's quite a funny one.
It would, and then some. Kalle, listen, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time.
Cheers,
Good luck
Kalle.
at the weekend as well.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.